Yo, what is going on YouTube? This is your boy Dan, aka aDrive, bringing you guys week 5 of the UCL, our pregame press conference and team builder for the St. Louis Rampardos taking on the Manchester Magnezones and coach FeintAttacks, my friend Christian. If you guys are hyped for this week's of matches, show you loving that like button down below, as your support is of course greatly appreciated. Last week we took on Game Boy Luke and the Bristol City Blazekins and did lose, so we have fallen to 2-2 so far. Not exactly where I'd like to be at this point in the season. Now, last week was kind of a tough match for me as we did lose, and there was a little bit of luck involved, but that is Pokemon, man. That is Pokemon. I was a little bit salty after the match, and I realized that was just really dumb of me. I shouldn't have been salty, man. I had no reason to be mad. I played relatively decent, and he played well too, and you know, things just wouldn't work out. So it is what it is, man. But I kind of feel like I have a new perspective now on how to look at the league and stuff like that. And I feel like that's good. Sometimes I just kind of need to remind myself how it's supposed to just be for fun, and you know, we're supposed to just be posting good content and things like that. So anyway, let's look at Christian's team here. He's actually 2-2. He's had a couple really good matches where he's picked up some pretty tough wins, but he's also had some tough matches. And last season we played Christian, and with no disrespect, it was a body bag. I think I 6-0'd him actually last season, but I'm not taking this match lightly. I think he's got a really, really good team, and I think he's definitely improved as a battler. So we're gonna have our work cut out for us, and it's definitely not an easy win by any means. In fact, it might not be a win at all. So we're gonna do our best here to hopefully pick up a W. So looking at his team, he's got a Latias. That could be a Mega Latias or a regular Latias, which is a very good Pokemon. That could be either. And Latias was a Mega that I had considered trying to draft at the beginning of the season, but obviously I didn't go that route. But it's a very good Pokemon. Can be run with a Life Orb or the Mega Stone, and obviously can be defensive as well. Calm Mind, Setup Sweeper, things like that. So just a very, very offensive Pokemon. Also can have some pretty good bulk and utility purposes there. So very, very scary. Rotom Wash, Pokemon I know very well. I've used it quite a bit in another league, and Rotom Wash is a very good Pokemon, but it's pretty one-dimensional. I mean, yeah, it can be Scarfed, it can do a couple other things, but for the most part, it's a pivot, defensive type Pokemon. So we'll have to look out for that. It's prone to being worn down relatively easy too if it doesn't carry Chesto Resto or Pain Split, so you can usually take advantage of that. He's got a Ferrothorn, very, very good Pokemon defensively. Can set up a lot of hazards on our team, Spikes and Stealth Rocks, and also Leech Seed. From an offensive perspective, does lack a little bit, but can be tailored to work with that. Whimsicott is his only fairy or dragon type immunity, I suppose. Whimsicott's a really interesting Pokemon with Prankster, obviously, giving it the ability to set up Tailwinds or even Encore things if they're setup sweepers. It can also use Sunspore to paralyze Pokemon. So that makes Whimsicott a bit of a problem, really, but I have a couple things that really match up well against Whimsicott, specifically Venusaur, so it's not too big of a concern. He's got a Nidoqueen, which I know very, very well as being a tremendously good offensive threat. A little bit of slow, and the problem is Nidoqueen, you either run Life Orb or with Sheer Force or to get the full power, or you run Scarf to kind of mitigate the speed, and you could run defensive too, but for the most part, it's probably going to be an offensive variant. He's got a Mienshao, which is very, very scary for my team for a couple of reasons. The first one being the fact that he can always click high jump kick, he can be reckless, he can have Regenerator with U-turn and get some momentum with that Volturn combo between Rotom and Mienshao. So I have to be pretty careful about those two things. He's got a Sneasel as well, pretty frail Pokemon. He might run a Sash Sneasel this week, which could make some sense, but without the Life Orb, Sneasel is pretty weak, generally speaking. Obviously it gets knockoff and stuff like that, but Venusaur serves a great response to that. Meloetta is actually a little bit scary too, because of its typing. Normal and Psychic allows him to take on some of my other threats pretty well. If he carries like a Focus Blast, Psychic, or Psyshock variant, that could be problematic for my team. He's also got a Rhyperior, which is a very interesting Pokemon. In this matchup, I don't really think Rhyperior does much to my team, unless he brings like a Rock Polish offensive variant, but I have prepared for that, so we'll kind of keep an eye out there. But I have a couple Pokemon that really one-shot it, so it's not really too scary to me. He's got a Magmortar as well, another one of those Pokemon that kind of teeters in the middle of being like super good and also not so good. Great coverage, good special attack stat, a little bit slow, and its typing leaves a little bit to be desired in many cases. So it is a really good Pokemon, but does have its flaws. Armaldo is his Rapid Spinner, so he's got two forms of hazard removal in Armaldo Rapid Spinning and Latias having Defog. Armaldo otherwise is not the greatest Pokemon. It's pretty good, but it lacks a proper typing. I mean, Bug and Rock just isn't that great because it's weak to like water type moves and things like that. And you have to invest heavily into its defenses for it to be effective that way. And last but not least, he's got a Dusk Noir, which is a pure ghost type Pokemon, good spin blocker, which he could bring stacks. He could stack against me with Ferrothorn and Dusk Noir. And if he were to bring that, that would actually be really problematic for my team. But I have some pretty big wall breakers that I think can kind of break through that. So let's kick off our team here and kind of what we're bringing and why we're bringing it. And I'm actually going to go in order again as to why I brought the team and how I constructed it. So the first Pokemon I'm bringing is going to be our Excadrill here, which does lead our team in kills. Earthquake, Iron Head, Rapid Spin, Stealth Rocks, max attack. Good amount of speed investment on there to make sure we outspeed Rotom Wash if he's max speed, which I don't anticipate, but it's nice to have. Life Orb, Jolly Earthquake actually OHKOs Rotom Wash from full, and we do have the Mold Breaker to negate his Levitate, so I don't know if he's going to know that, but it's a nice thing. We can actually 2-hit KO some variants of Ferrothorn as well. We do put a tremendous amount of pressure on the Latias. Obviously, it outspeeds us, but we resist both Dragon and Psychic type stabs, so he would have to carry a third move, potentially Surf, to really hit Excadrill very hard, but even so, that limits his options in terms of what his Latias can do in terms of being a setup sweeper, having Roost, which is really what adds to its longevity if he is a Mega variant. But this thing otherwise matches up really well. Iron Head obviously destroys Whimsicott, which really can't touch me too much. Earthquake destroys Nidoqueen, we outspeed it. We can also hit other things pretty hard. We actually really destroy Rhyperior, and we outspeed Magmortar and Armaldo, and obviously you can see we're just going to put a lot of damage in on a lot of these Pokemon. So it hits really hard, and I think it can be really effective. I got Rocks on there just in case he does bring Sneasel, and I want to get those Rocks up to break a Sash, and Rapid Spin there because I need it, just in case that Ferrothorn ends up being more problematic. The next Pokemon we're bringing is our Asparagus here, a Venusaur, max HP, rocking some defense, tiny bit of speed. Giga Drain, Hidden Power, Fire, Sludge Bomb Synthesis. This is actually a standard Smogon Venusaur right here with a customized EV spread. I can live 2 modest Life Orb Earth Powers from Nidoqueen. I can also take pretty much any hit from a lot of... I mean, really the only thing that beats Venusaur in his team is Meloetta and Latias. So I don't know if he's going to like really prep in that way to bring both of those or bring one of those or whatever, but Venusaur just really bodies his team in that case, and it's my primary response to Whimsicott, my primary response to Ferrothorn, primary response to Rotom. I mean, it's just like my primary response for everything. So Venusaur has a lot of responsibility in this match, and I really need to keep it healthy as long as possible. I think we did a decent job of doing that last week, but that Kyurem just put a little too much pressure on us, so I wasn't able to really make it work. Nevertheless, Venusaur should be pretty effective for us. The next Pokemon we're going to bring is our Scarf Heracross here, Pinocchio, coming through again. We got the Adamant Guts, Choice Scarf. Guts is there in case that Rotom decides to Will-O-Wisp us, or we get status by the Whimsicott or something like that, but we do outspeed everything on his team, including that Latias, which is really nice, and we can almost OHKO with a Mega Horn depending on his spread. If he's an offensive Latias, we OHKO with Mega Horn. If he's a defensive one, we do a tremendous amount. Close Combat obviously destroys a lot of his team. Earthquake is there for Nidoqueen if I don't want to click one of the other moves, and Knockoff is just really nice, especially for like Dusk Noir on the Switch and things like that. We used Scarf Heracross very effectively against the Tulsa Talonflame, so I'm hoping to do that again this week. I really toss back and forth with this decision here, whether I wanted to go more defensive with something like Asparagus or more offensive with something like Heracross, and I went with the offensive, so this is going to be a slugfest on my end. I'm really bringing a lot of offense this week, and I'm bringing a lot of like really heavy hitters, wall breakers, and hoping that Heracross is going to be able to sweep and clean up at the end. So that's kind of my plan. I would love to run Moxie, but we went Guts because I think the threat of Rotom is just too high, and getting that Will-O-Wisp off and getting that extra burn, boost would be really nice. The next Pokemon I'm bringing is a Choice Banded Tyranitar with Sandstream. I'm not running Sandrush this week, and I've been conflicted with the Sandstream and Venusaur because it really kind of doesn't work too well because of the synthesis, but it's only 5 turns, so we could probably work around it. And we got the Choice Band on there because Choice Banded Adamant Pursuit actually OHKOs Latias from full if he's an offensive variant. Crunch destroys things. He really doesn't have many switch-ins, so like Stone Edge, Crunch, or Fire Punch. So this thing can really put in some work, but its primary responsibility is to take on the Latias. I really need to get this thing on Latias and just Pursuit Trap it and knock it out, because otherwise Latias can be very problematic for my team. If I trade Tyranitar for Latias 1-for-1, then I consider that to be very successful. Otherwise, Fire Punch does put a huge hole into Ferrothorn. We have enough speed on here to outspeed a defensive variant of Rotom, so we could 2-hit KO it with a Crunch or Stone Edge. Obviously, we can take on things like Meloetta if he's not carrying Focus Blast and things like that. So it really depends on what moveset he brings, but I think this thing could put in some work, and obviously Crunch is going to do a tremendous amount to that Dusk Noir, assuming we don't get burned or whatever. So that's our Tyranitar there. We've got our Oxygen here, Vaporeon, who has proven to be a very good defensive Pokemon this season. Scald, Heal Bell, Wish, Toxic, pretty standard stuff. Obviously, we can't touch Ferrothorn, but a burn on Ferrothorn is very useful. Toxic for the Rotom if we want, or the burn. Toxic also for Latias if he's not a sub-variant of Latias, which I don't think he can bring simply because he needs proper coverage for the rest of my Pokemon, so I don't anticipate a sub-Latias, but Toxicus for that to help wear it down because it could be problematic, and he doesn't really have a reliable cleric on his team. Nothing on his team really jumps out to me as being a heal builder or aromatherapy user, so I don't know if any of them get it, but none of them really fit that role too well, so I think getting those poisons off could be very useful. Obviously, Scald hits really well against the Nidoqueen. We can take hits from that, Rhyperior, Magmortar, things like that, so it really works up pretty well. And the last Pokemon we're bringing is our Salamence here, Earhart. This is a set and a Salamence that I really love to bring, especially all offensive. Salamence is really good, because not many things can take a Draco Meteor, and in fact, Draco Meteor, Fire Blast, Hydro Pump has great coverage against his team. We are Life Orb, max special attack, and we're going to be able to drop some Dracos and hit some things really hard, and this is my primary wall breaker on my team to really dent his defensive Pokemon and open up the doors for things like Heracross. But Draco Meteor, actually, I can destroy the Rotom depending on a spread. Draco Meteor plus Fire Blast, even after the -2, does OHKO most variants of Ferrothorn, so that's really nice to know. Hydro Pump does almost OHKO Nidoqueen depending on a spread. If he's a speed invested variant, we do OHKO. Obviously, there's just a lot of perks to this thing. Having that Intimidate is also really nice for the Mienshao in case I need to switch into that and drop a Draco, and I'm going to need to be able to live a Rock Slide. It's nice to be able to do that. Also, I don't have to worry about burns from the Rotom or the Dust Noir, so that gives me an opportunity to just continuously click Draco Meteor, which nothing on his team can take, aside from Whimsicott. Whimsicott is one of those Pokemon that I don't really think he's going to bring, but there's also a very good chance he does bring it, just to stop my Dragon, and it also matches up pretty well against my team looking at it. But Whimsicott can't touch Venusaur. Even like a Hurricane variant of Whimsicott isn't going to want to touch Venusaur, and it would be really weird to bring Hurricane unless he brought Rain Dance, and because of the Tyranitar, so it just really didn't make a lot of sense for that set to come. But Whimsicott gets absolutely completely destroyed by Venusaur, and it can't really do anything to it. So that's kind of why I'm going with Salamence here, and I can just click some Draco Meteors, and we're not locked into any moves, which is nice. And if he brings like a defensive variant of Latias without max speed, then we're going to be able to outspeed that thing anyway. So we've got a lot of things going on for us here with this Salamence, and I think it's going to put in some work. So that is my team, guys. That's the team of 6 we're bringing. I decided to bring a lot of offense this week. I was a little unsure. Like I said, I had thought about bringing Scarf Drill, not bringing Heracross, bringing Cofagrigus instead to kind of help with Mienshao. If I get burned by Mienshao, I'm going to regret that decision, but Venusaur at max takes like 40% from any hit Mienshao is going to do, so I can usually switch that thing in and synthesis off the damage if I need to, and put on some pressure with Sludge Bombs and things like that. I've also got Vaporeon, which could take some hits, and he may be a little hesitant to bring Mienshao with like High Jump Kick because of Cofagrigus, so we have some options there. And again, Intimidate, Salamence can switch in and take a Rock Slide and fire off a Draco Meteor and OHKO it and do some work there. So that's gonna be our squad, man. Hopefully we we bounce back this week. We got to win this one. I do not want to go to 2-3. That would be not so good. We already have more losses this season than we did last season, so we really got to step it up. But that's gonna be that, guys. I hope you guys did enjoy. Get excited for the match tomorrow, and I'll catch you guys later. That's gonna be it for me, guys. My name is Dan. I'm the coach of your St. Louis Rampardos, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.